I never thought I'd see this place again," Sophia Bennett whispered under her breath as she pushed open the heavy glass door of the Willow Creek Bistro. The scent of roasted coffee beans and freshly baked bread immediately enveloping her. The soft golden lights spilling from pendant lamps painted the polished wooden tables with a warmth that felt both inviting and suffocating. Around her, the murmur of conversation blended with the gentle clatter of dishes, each sound a reminder of lives moving forward while hers had been paused. She could feel the weight of the world settling into her shoulders, a familiar ache from months of careful solitude and quiet planning. As she slid into the corner booth, her fingers traced the edge of the leather seat, her eyes scanning the room with practiced calm, noting every detail. The crisp white napkins, the gleam of silverware, the faint aroma of time lingering from the kitchen. Nathan Hale, the man whose memory had shadowed her every step, would arrive soon. She knew it. Her pulse quickened at the thought, but she forced herself to breathe, to let the rhythm of her body guide her back to the present. The restaurant's ambient light reflected softly in her eyes, a mixture of apprehension and determination. She imagined the scene unfolding as if from a storybook she had once loved. Nathan's tailored suit, the confident tilt of his chin, the way he believed he could control any room he entered. But Sophia had changed. The quiet resilience she had cultivated over months of early mornings, late nights, and endless planning had honed her into someone unrecognizable from the past. Her thoughts flickered to Logan, her brother, whose presence had been a constant reassurance and secret pillar of strength. He had taught her to see beyond fear, to understand that power did not always roar. Sometimes it waited in silence, in observation, in patience. A waiter approached, offering a menu with a polite smile, and Sophia's hand hovered over it. But she barely glanced, her mind elsewhere, mapping the paths, the angles, the subtle movements that might tip the balance in her favor. The soft hum of a jazz trio in the corner added a surreal layer to the tension, each note threading through the air like a reminder of the calm before a storm. She sipped her herbal tea, the warmth grounding her, the familiar bitterness a reminder of life's small comforts. Every shadow in the bistro seemed elongated, stretching toward her as if to touch her, to remind her of past pains and old betrayals. The polished floors reflected her steady breathing, and in that reflection, she saw the woman who had been underestimated, dismissed, and yet who had survived, who had reclaimed her sense of self with a quiet ferocity. She glanced at the entrance again, a subtle tightening in her chest signaling that the moment was drawing near. The door swung slightly in the breeze from the street outside, and she held her breath, each second stretching like a taut wire, the anticipation crackling in the air. Sophia's gaze swept the room once more, noting the placement of tables, the subtle interactions of diners, the quiet confidence of staff moving in practiced rhythms, each detail a piece of the invisible chessboard she had been setting. And then, from the kitchen, a faint clatter, the soft metallic scrape of pans, echoed in the room, and she felt it. A shiver of readiness, a spark of anticipation. The stage was set, the players soon to appear, and Sophia sat in stillness, a silent force, her emerald green dress absorbing the light, her hands resting lightly on her growing belly, her mind calm but electric with the knowledge that she would not be caught off guard, that today, she would see just how much the world had underestimated the woman who had survived it all. Sophia adjusted her posture in the corner booth, the emerald green silk of her dress catching the warm light like a jewel, and allowed herself a slow, steadying breath. Each movement was deliberate, measured, as if the air around her could bend to her will. She thought back to the months after the separation, the silent mornings and quiet evenings, the careful reconstruction of her life from fragments of broken trust and hidden strength. Her apartment, overlooking the city skyline, had become a sanctuary, a place where the hum of streetlights below and the faint aroma of jasmine from a neighbor's garden reminded her that the world outside moved at its own pace. But she could define her own rhythm within it. Her mind traced the steps that had led her here, the countless conversations with Logan about strategy, presence, and patience, each lesson ingrained like a muscle memory she could call upon at a moment's notice. She sipped her chamomile tea, the warmth flowing through her, anchoring her in the present while the pulse of the city outside mirrored the tension coiling in her chest. The clinking of silverware and the soft murmur of nearby diners created a tapestry of ambient noise that she could almost tune like an instrument, each sound a note in the symphony of preparation. Her gaze flicked toward the entrance, noting the subtle shifts in the staff's positions, the angle of the sun through the large front windows, the way the reflections on polished tabletops could obscure or reveal a movement. Sophia's mind was meticulous, cataloging the possibilities, rehearsing responses to gestures, tone, and the invisible currents of power and perception that filled the space. She recalled the feeling of cold marble under her hands during previous encounters with Nathan, the weight of expectation pressing against her like an unseen force, and contrasted it with the soft, pliant texture of her dress now, a symbol of her reclaimed presence, her awareness of every detail, every nuance. The faint hiss of the espresso machine and the muted clatter from the back kitchen were familiar, grounding sounds that reminded her of the ordinary world, yet they also marked the threshold of the extraordinary, the imminent convergence of past and present. Sophia's thoughts lingered on the importance of stillness, of allowing tension to build, of knowing when to act and when to observe. Each sensation, each subtle shift in temperature or scent, each glance from a passing server, became data points in the mental map she had constructed for this precise moment. She felt the faint stir of the baby within her, a reminder of life, resilience, and purpose, and allowed the connection to guide her confidence, anchoring her to an inner strength that radiated outward. The subtle rustle of fabric from the next table, the soft murmur of a conversation about mundane matters, the light flicker from a pendant lamp swinging slightly from the overhead air current, all became part of the rhythm she synchronized with her own heartbeat, each beat a metronome for patience and precision. Sophia's eyes lingered on the doorway, a quiet acknowledgement that the next minutes would determine the shift in the balance, that everything she had prepared for, every lesson learned, every ounce of measured calm, was about to be tested in the living room of the city's most watched restaurant, and she felt a surge of controlled energy, a poised anticipation that shimmered just beneath the surface, ready to be expressed when the moment arrived. Sophia's eyes narrowed as the soft chime of the entrance bell signaled the arrival of a presence she had anticipated but not yet witnessed, a ripple of movement in the kitchen catching her attention. Logan Bennett stepped through the swinging door, his posture upright, calm yet commanding, a quiet force that seemed to fill the room without a word. The gentle hum of the restaurant seemed to shift around him, each patron's glance momentarily drawn to the tall figure whose steady gaze met Sophia's with unspoken understanding. Nathan Hale, previously radiating control, paused mid-step, his confidence faltering as he registered the arrival of someone whose authority and protective presence could not be ignored. Sophia felt a subtle release of tension, the careful measurement of every breath and heartbeat aligning with a surge of empowerment that had been growing over months of careful planning and self-restoration. Logan moved with deliberate purpose, acknowledging the staff with a nod, a silent assurance that the situation was contained, yet every eye in the room seemed to register the unspoken narrative unfolding before them. Sophia lifted her chin, the emerald fabric of her dress catching the warm overhead light, her posture signaling composure, resilience, and an unshakable presence that contrasted with Nathan's sudden hesitation. The clink of cutlery and muted conversations faded into a backdrop as attention, whether conscious or subliminal, gravitated toward the quiet assertion of control Logan embodied. Sophia allowed a small, measured smile to curve her lips, a reflection of inner calm and the knowledge that her silent strength, her patient endurance, had orchestrated this moment. Nathan's attempts to command the space now seemed incongruent, his gestures heavy with uncertainty, while Sophia's gaze never wavered, each subtle shift in expression and posture reinforcing the narrative of resilience and reclaimed dignity. The ambient warmth of the restaurant, the gentle scent of baked bread and simmering sauces, and the soft golden light from the pendants above created a scene in which time itself seemed to slow, each second amplifying the tension and the clarity of Sophia's presence. She observed every micro-expression, every fleeting glance, cataloging the subtle changes in body language, the brief flickers of doubt in Nathan's eyes, the quiet attentiveness of Logan's posture, and understood that the balance of the room had irrevocably shifted. The air carried the faint scent of thyme and roasted vegetables, the rustle of cloth from servers' uniforms, and the muted murmur of a conversation at a distant table. Yet Sophia's awareness transcended the ordinary sounds, focusing on the interplay of power, presence, and the quiet assertion of boundaries. Logan approached the booth, the space between them measured, respectful, protective, and full of unspoken communication, a reminder that Sophia was no longer alone, that her calculated patience and careful orchestration had created a moment of undeniable authority and equilibrium. Each second stretched, the weight of past grievances balanced against the poised energy of the present, as Sophia exhaled slowly, feeling the culmination of months of emotional resilience manifest in the room around her, a silent testament to her strength, her careful foresight, and the profound reassurance that her world, once fractured, now held an unshakable core anchored in courage, family, and self-possession. Sophia felt the soft weight of anticipation settle over her as Logan took his place beside her, the quiet confidence radiating from him like a shield around her. The gentle ambient light of the Willow Creek Bistro illuminated the contours of their faces, and for a moment, the restaurant seemed suspended in time, each detail sharpened. The polished oak floors reflecting subtle glimmers of candlelight, the faint aroma of rosemary from the kitchen mingling with the rich scent of freshly baked bread, the soft murmur of conversations fading into an almost imperceptible hum. Patrons shifted in their seats, some unaware, others sensing a subtle change in energy, an unspoken assertion of authority that commanded attention without a word. Sophia allowed herself to notice the subtle movement of Nathan Hale as he registered the presence of Logan, a faint tightening around his jaw, the brief flicker of hesitation in his eyes betraying the controlled facade he had cultivated for years. She felt the calm energy settle into her bones, the rhythm of her heartbeat aligning with the silent pulse of determination she had carried for months, a testament to patience, endurance, and careful orchestration. Logan's gaze flicked toward the kitchen, noting the subtle changes in activity, the gentle rise and fall of staff movements, a quiet orchestration that mirrored the precision of their planning. Sophia exhaled slowly, feeling the warmth of the tea she had sipped moments before ground her in the present, anchoring her to the quiet confidence that radiated from within. Each glance, each subtle shift in posture, became a data point in the narrative unfolding around them, a careful calibration of power, awareness, and timing. She noticed the glimmer of light on the silverware, the gentle creak of chairs as diners adjusted their positions, the faint reflection of the overhead pendants in the polished surfaces, all contributing to a sensory landscape in which she moved with a deliberate and measured presence. The subtle rustle of Logan's chef jacket as he shifted slightly was a reminder of the silent strength at her side, the unspoken assurance that she was no longer navigating the room alone. Sophia allowed her shoulders to relax, her chin lifted slightly, her expression calm, yet radiating authority, a visual cue that even in the presence of old memories and lingering tension, she remained grounded, resilient, and composed. The golden glow of the lamps above cast soft shadows across the tables, highlighting the contrast between the ordinary moments of a bustling restaurant and the extraordinary quiet power emerging in their corner booth. Sophia felt a surge of inner clarity, the culmination of countless hours spent observing, planning, and cultivating resilience crystallizing in this shared space with her brother. Every small sound, every flicker of movement, every subtle shift in light contributed to the heightened awareness that filled her senses, reinforcing the quiet triumph of presence, preparedness, and unwavering confidence as the balance of the room subtly shifted in her favor, signaling that the next moments would be shaped not by force or confrontation, but by the deliberate, poised assertion of intelligence, patience, and controlled energy. Sophia shifted slightly in the corner booth, her hands resting lightly over the gentle curve of her belly, the emerald green fabric of her dress catching the soft overhead glow and scattering light across the polished tabletop. Logan remained at her side, his presence a quiet anchor, each movement deliberate and measured, his eyes scanning the room with the calm precision of someone trained to anticipate every subtle signal, every nuance of body language, every fleeting shift in energy. Sophia could feel the soft rhythm of her own heartbeat, steady and controlled, each pulse reinforcing the focus she had cultivated over months of preparation, the long hours spent building resilience and learning to read the smallest changes in posture or expression that could alter the balance of power in any space. The restaurant, alive with the gentle hum of conversation, the occasional clatter of silverware, and the faint hiss of steam from the kitchen, seemed to recede around her, leaving only the tension and expectation that hovered in the air between the tables. Nathan Hale's steps approached, the sound measured and deliberate, yet lacking the quiet confidence he had once carried so effortlessly, a subtle tension in his shoulders betraying the awareness that the dynamic had shifted. Sophia's eyes tracked him, noting the way the light reflected off his polished shoes, the slight angle of his collar, the tightening of his jaw, each detail recorded with the careful attentiveness she had learned to cultivate. She allowed herself a small, private smile, a signal to herself of the progress she had made, the strength she had honed in the months since their separation, and the knowledge that she was no longer vulnerable to the subtle manipulations or implied superiority that Nathan once wielded so easily. Logan's steady gaze met hers briefly, an unspoken acknowledgement of their shared understanding and silent coordination, the bond of family and trust manifesting in the quiet assurance that she was protected and observed. Sophia's attention swept the room again, noting the flicker of movement from waitstaff, the subtle reflection of sunlight on the polished wood, the scent of rosemary and fresh bread, all interwoven into a tapestry of heightened awareness that grounded her in the present while allowing her mind to anticipate the unfolding interactions. Each breath she took was deliberate, measured, a metronome that aligned with the calm, controlled energy radiating from both herself and Logan, a silent rhythm that countered the tension Nathan attempted to project. Patrons, oblivious to the undercurrent of observation and strategy, continued their conversations, yet the subtle shift in atmosphere was palpable, a quiet awareness that something significant was unfolding, guided by the patient, deliberate presence of Sophia and the unassuming authority of her brother. Sophia felt a profound clarity, the culmination of countless moments of introspection and deliberate preparation crystallizing in this singular scene, every movement, every glance, every subtle interaction reinforcing the quiet but undeniable assertion of control and composure that she now embodied, a testament to her endurance, careful orchestration, and the unshakable strength cultivated over months of deliberate effort and reflection. Sophia's gaze swept the restaurant once more, the polished oak floors reflecting the warm glow of the overhead pendants, each light catching the emerald folds of her dress and scattering soft highlights across the table. She felt the quiet assurance of Logan beside her, his presence a calm anchor in the shifting energy of the room, the subtle adjustment of his stance, the measured tilt of his head, and the small, deliberate nods creating an unspoken dialogue that resonated with patience, preparation, and control. Patrons continued their conversations, the faint hum of voices, the soft scrape of chairs, and the occasional clink of silverware providing a textured backdrop. Yet within the corner booth, the rhythm of expectation and composure dominated the space, a delicate tension woven through the air that spoke of careful anticipation. Sophia's mind traced every detail, the angle of the light through the front windows, the way the reflections on the polished tabletops could reveal or obscure movement, the subtle gestures of waitstaff adjusting placements, all cataloged with precision as if each element were a note in a symphony she conducted through awareness and presence. The faint aroma of rosemary and warm bread mingled with the scent of roasted coffee beans, creating an olfactory landscape that grounded her in the moment, while the distant murmur of street traffic and the occasional clatter from the kitchen provided context to the living, breathing environment. Logan shifted slightly, his movements calculated yet relaxed, signaling readiness without intrusion, the quiet authority he exuded reinforcing the invisible boundary that defined the space Sophia occupied. Nathan Hale's approach, deliberate and confident, contrasted with the subtle shift in posture and expression that betrayed his awareness of the changing dynamic, a realization that the control he once assumed was no longer unilateral. Sophia allowed herself a small, deliberate smile, the curve of her lips reflecting the calm confidence she had cultivated over months of careful observation and preparation, an acknowledgement of the quiet power she now wielded through presence and composure. Each breath she took aligned with the soft rhythm of the room, a steady metronome reinforcing her awareness and patience, the silent pulse of resilience and foresight guiding her through the interactions to come. The polished surfaces of tables and glassware mirrored fragments of light, creating a dynamic visual texture that highlighted the contrasts between tension and calm, anticipation and restraint, old power and newfound authority. Sophia's eyes tracked subtle movements across the room, the tilt of a head, the brief narrowing of eyes, the delicate shift in weight from foot to foot, cataloging every micro-expression as data for the careful navigation of the evolving scene. Logan's presence, unwavering and measured, created a quiet reassurance, an unspoken promise of support, and Sophia felt the culmination of months of planning, reflection, and emotional resilience converge in this moment. The careful orchestration of awareness, patience, and subtle authority solidifying the balance of power and establishing a space where composure, intelligence, and quiet confidence reigned supreme, leaving the room poised on the edge of anticipation, every detail, every glance, and every soft sound contributing to the growing sense of inevitability and control that defined the unfolding scene. Sophia felt the ambient warmth of the bistro settle around her, a soft glow that contrasted with the tight coil of anticipation in the pit of her stomach. Logan's presence beside her was a constant, a quiet reassurance that translated into every careful breath she drew, a steady rhythm that anchored her in the present while her mind tracked every subtle shift in the room. The gentle clink of silverware and the muted murmur of patrons formed a backdrop to the heightened awareness that now defined the space around her. Nathan Hale paused mid-step, the faint tension in his shoulders betraying the realization that the dynamic he had once controlled was now balanced differently, a quiet but undeniable shift in authority resonating through the air. Sophia's eyes scanned the room, noting the angle of light as it caught on polished surfaces, the delicate reflection in the glassware, the subtle posture of the servers moving through the tables, each element a part of the mental map she had constructed over months of careful observation and preparation. The aroma of freshly baked bread, warm herbs, and brewed coffee mingled in the air, grounding her in sensory detail even as the undercurrent of anticipation rippled through the space. Every subtle gesture from Nathan, the micro-expression of doubt, the slight hesitation in a step, registered in Sophia's mind, cataloged and interpreted as part of the ongoing interaction. She allowed her shoulders to relax, her chin lifted just slightly, a calm, deliberate smile tracing her lips, signaling both readiness and quiet authority. Logan adjusted his stance, a subtle movement that communicated vigilance and measured control, reinforcing the unspoken assurance that Sophia was neither vulnerable nor unprepared. The interplay of light, sound, and scent created a vivid, almost tangible atmosphere, one in which Sophia's presence radiated quietly but unmistakably, each breath, each measured glance asserting her composure and resilience. Patrons, unaware of the intricate tension unfolding in their midst, continued their conversations, their voices weaving through the room like threads in a tapestry that highlighted the quiet dominance of presence over action. Sophia's gaze lingered on the subtle interplay of shadows and reflections, noting how each movement, each flicker of attention could influence perception, and she felt a surge of controlled energy, a quiet satisfaction in the alignment of preparation, observation, and anticipation. The hum of the restaurant, the soft warmth of the lighting, the faint scent of herbs, and the steady presence of Logan created a cocoon of awareness and readiness around her, a space where past grievances, careful planning, and silent strength converged. Sophia exhaled, feeling the culmination of months of resilience and focus crystallize into a moment of poised authority, a quiet but undeniable assertion of power, patience, and measured control, leaving the room on the cusp of revelation and the next chapter of the unfolding narrative. Sophia felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere as the restaurant settled into a delicate rhythm, the soft golden glow from the pendant lights casting gentle reflections across polished tabletops and the emerald folds of her dress. Logan remained quietly attentive beside her, his posture relaxed but alert, every slight movement calibrated to maintain the balance of awareness and control that now defined the space. The muted hum of conversation, the gentle clatter of cutlery, and the occasional hiss from the espresso machine created a layered soundtrack that contrasted with the heightened focus Sophia maintained, each sound a signal woven into her perception of the room. She allowed her eyes to trace the movements of the staff, noting the subtle adjustments in their steps, the way shadows played across the floor, the angle of light reflecting on glassware, each detail cataloged as part of the evolving scene. Sophia's mind flickered briefly to the months of preparation, the careful cultivation of patience and observation, the slow accumulation of strength that had led her to this moment of poised awareness, a quiet readiness that radiated outward in measured confidence. Nathan Hale's presence, once commanding and unchecked, now seemed subtly altered, a faint tension in his posture betraying the realization that the dynamic had shifted, the balance of power tempered by the careful orchestration of presence and perception that Sophia had honed over time. She lifted her chin slightly, the curve of her lips carrying a quiet determination, a visual testament to composure and resilience, while her hands rested lightly over the swell of her belly, anchoring her in the tangible reality of the life she protected and the authority she now possessed. Logan's gaze flicked across the room, an imperceptible signal of vigilance and assurance, a silent partner in the orchestration of subtle influence and careful control. Sophia allowed her breathing to slow, the rhythm of each inhale and exhale synchronizing with the ambient energy of the room, a metronome of patience and readiness that underlined every small gesture and glance. The interplay of light, scent, and sound painted the space in a vivid tableau, each sensory element reinforcing the sense of careful calculation and deliberate observation that defined her presence. Patrons continued their conversations, unaware of the intricate tension and the precise choreography of observation unfolding in the corner booth. Sophia's eyes met the faint reflections in polished surfaces, noting each flicker of movement, each subtle shift in posture, the slight hesitation of a hand, the soft turn of a head, and she cataloged these with the quiet efficiency of someone who had spent months anticipating every eventuality. The aroma of freshly baked bread mingled with the warm scent of coffee and herbs, grounding her in a sensory awareness that reinforced calm and clarity, even as the moment bristled with anticipation. Sophia felt the culmination of preparation, reflection, and quiet resilience converge, the careful alignment of observation, patience, and poised authority creating a palpable sense of control and readiness, a quiet but undeniable assertion of presence that left the room suspended in anticipation, every subtle detail contributing to the orchestration of influence, perception, and silent power that defined the unfolding scene. Sophia's awareness sharpened as the soft buzz of the restaurant settled into a rhythm, the golden light from the pendant lamps illuminating the polished wood and casting a warm glow across the emerald fabric of her dress. Logan's presence at her side remained calm and unwavering, his subtle movements precise and measured, a quiet extension of her own sense of vigilance. Patrons continued their conversations, unaware of the heightened focus and deliberate attention to detail that enveloped the corner booth, each footstep, each subtle gesture, cataloged in Sophia's mind with meticulous care. The faint aroma of roasted coffee beans mixed with the scent of warm bread and simmering herbs, grounding her in the sensory texture of the room as her eyes tracked every shift in posture and expression around her. Nathan Hale's approach, once commanding and assured, now carried a slight hesitancy, a recognition that the dynamic he had expected was no longer fixed, that the quiet authority Sophia projected, reinforced by Logan's measured presence, had recalibrated the energy of the space. She adjusted her posture subtly, lifting her chin, allowing a small, controlled smile to appear, a visual statement of composure and patience the product of months spent observing, learning, and preparing for this moment. The reflections from polished tabletops and glassware scattered light in subtle patterns, drawing attention to the careful positioning of both Sophia and Logan, an unspoken choreography that maintained awareness while commanding presence. Each faint shift of a chair, each murmur of conversation, each flicker of light across a surface became a signal in the intricate web of observation she had woven, reinforcing the sense of control and readiness she carried effortlessly. Logan's gaze remained attentive, scanning the room with quiet precision, communicating silently through posture and subtle gestures that reinforced Sophia's autonomy and reinforced the calm, yet undeniable authority radiating from her corner. Sophia felt the familiar flutter of anticipation, a steady pulse that aligned with the subtle rhythms of the room, each breath deliberate, each heartbeat a metronome that synchronized with the measured energy surrounding her. She noted the angles of light, the gentle sway of shadows, the small shifts in movement from staff and patrons, cataloging these details as part of a larger pattern of awareness and preparation. The gentle hum of background conversation, the soft clink of cutlery, the occasional distant sound from the kitchen, all coalesced into a layered atmosphere that highlighted the quiet dominance of Sophia's presence and the poised assurance of Logan's support. Every glance, every micro-expression, every subtle movement of Nathan Hale was recorded, interpreted, and held in the steady framework of observation that Sophia had cultivated, a mental map of anticipation and readiness. She exhaled slowly, the warmth of her tea a reminder of grounded presence, and felt the culmination of months of patience, reflection, and careful orchestration coalesce into a moment of unshakable composure, a silent but undeniable assertion of her resilience, strength, and quiet authority that defined the energy of the space and set the stage for the next unfolding moment. Sophia felt the subtle weight of anticipation lift slightly as the soft murmur of the restaurant wove a familiar, grounding backdrop around her, the amber glow of the overhead pendants reflecting in the polished surfaces and the rich emerald of her dress. Logan's quiet presence at her side radiated assurance, each slight shift in posture and measured glance a silent reinforcement of readiness, a calm that seemed to radiate through the space and settle over Sophia like a protective veil. The gentle clatter of cutlery, the low hum of conversation, and the faint hiss of the espresso machine created a textured soundscape that underscored the deliberate pace of her awareness, each note a part of the rhythm she had synchronized with her own steady heartbeat. Sophia's eyes swept across the room, noting the subtle nuances in patrons' postures, the delicate reflections on glassware, the soft swaying of chairs as diners adjusted, cataloging every micro-detail with meticulous attention and integrating each sensory observation into the quiet strategy she had honed over months. Nathan Hale's movements, once commanding, now carried an edge of hesitation, a subtle awareness that the space no longer bent entirely to his will, that the composed presence of Sophia and the measured authority of Logan had recalibrated the equilibrium in the room. She allowed her chin to rise just slightly, her posture a quiet declaration of confidence, while her hands rested lightly over the gentle curve of her belly, grounding her in the tangible reality of her life and the careful control she exercised over the unfolding interactions. The golden light glinting off polished tables and silverware highlighted the contrast between the ordinary rhythms of a busy restaurant and the heightened awareness she projected, a silent orchestration that influenced perception and drew attention without a word. Logan's gaze remained steady, scanning the room with unobtrusive vigilance, the unspoken communication between them reinforcing a sense of calm, measured authority, and readiness that radiated outward. Sophia's awareness encompassed every sensory detail, the subtle aroma of herbs mingling with coffee, the faint rustle of server uniforms, the gentle shift of light across floor and walls, all woven into a rich tapestry of observation and anticipation. Each small gesture from Nathan, every micro-expression, every minute hesitation, was cataloged in her mental map, interpreted as part of the evolving dynamics of the room. Sophia exhaled slowly, the warmth of her tea grounding her, the rhythm of her breath synchronizing with the controlled energy around her, a metronome of patience and measured influence. She felt the culmination of months of resilience, careful observation, and emotional preparation coalesce into a singular moment of poised presence, a quiet but undeniable assertion of composure and authority that subtly commanded attention, leaving the room poised on the edge of anticipation, every sound, every reflection, every shadow reinforcing the controlled energy she radiated and the careful balance of power and perception that had become her own. Sophia felt the room shift as a quiet tension settled over the bistro, the ambient golden light casting long, soft shadows across polished tables and the rich folds of her emerald dress. Logan stood beside her, every movement measured, his presence a quiet reinforcement of her own awareness, a subtle reminder that she was not navigating this moment alone. The gentle hum of conversation and the soft clatter of dishes created a layered backdrop that emphasized the delicate balance of power and perception at play, each sound interwoven with the intricate rhythms of observation she maintained. Sophia's eyes traced the movements of Nathan Hale, noting the slight hesitation in his step, the almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw, and the fleeting flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, all details cataloged and interpreted in the quiet analytical rhythm she had cultivated over months. She allowed a calm, measured smile to curve her lips, a subtle assertion of composure and quiet authority, the signal of confidence and readiness that radiated without a word. The reflections of overhead light on glassware and polished surfaces created shifting patterns across the room, highlighting the subtle choreography of glances, gestures, and postures that define the interplay of presence and perception. Sophia's hands rested lightly over her belly, the gentle contact grounding her in the tangible reality of life, resilience, and the deliberate orchestration of every sensory detail around her. Logan's gaze scanned the space with unobtrusive precision, the silent communication between them reinforcing a rhythm of awareness, patience, and control that seemed to pervade the room, making each observer, consciously or not, attuned to the quiet authority emanating from their corner. The faint scent of roasted coffee and herbs mingled with warm bread, each element contributing to the rich sensory landscape that Sophia had trained herself to navigate with meticulous attention, every shift in air, light, and sound enhancing her situational awareness. Patrons continued their conversations, unaware of the subtle undercurrent of observation, the careful calibration of presence, and the poised anticipation that defined the corner booth. Sophia's gaze lingered on every reflection, every flicker of light across surfaces, each micro-expression from Nathan, cataloged and processed in real time, forming a detailed map of subtle power dynamics that she could navigate effortlessly. Each inhalation and exhalation synchronized with the quiet energy of the space, a controlled rhythm that underpinned her composure, patience, and readiness. Sophia felt the culmination of months of reflection, observation, and preparation coalesce into a quiet yet undeniable authority, her presence radiating a poised strength that shifted the atmosphere subtly but perceptibly, leaving the room balanced on the cusp of anticipation and signaling that the unfolding moments would be defined not by overt confrontation, but by measured awareness, silent influence, and the deliberate assertion of control over perception, attention, and energy within the space. Sophia exhaled slowly, feeling the subtle warmth of the restaurant settle over her like a soft veil, the ambient light glinting off polished surfaces and casting a golden glow across the emerald fabric of her dress. Logan remained quietly attentive at her side, his posture relaxed yet alert, a silent anchor that amplified the calm authority she now projected. The hum of conversation and the faint clatter of silverware provided a delicate backdrop, a contrast to the focused rhythm of awareness that defined the corner booth. Sophia's eyes scanned the room, noting every flicker of movement, the subtle shifts in posture, the angle of light reflecting off glassware, cataloging each detail with meticulous care. Nathan Hale's presence, once commanding, now carried a restrained tension, the subtle uncertainty in his gestures betraying the realization that the space had shifted, that the quiet authority radiating from Sophia and the steady assurance of Logan had redefined the energy of the room. She allowed her chin to rise slightly, a controlled, deliberate smile tracing her lips, a visual declaration of composure, patience, and quiet power. The gentle aroma of warm bread and herbs mingled with the faint scent of roasted coffee, grounding her in the present moment while the soft murmur of conversation created a textured, layered atmosphere. Each glance, each micro-expression, each nuanced movement of Nathan was observed and integrated into her mental map, forming a careful, deliberate understanding of the evolving dynamics in real time. Logan's subtle shifts in stance, his measured gaze, reinforced the quiet sense of protection and readiness that surrounded her, creating an unspoken communication between them that conveyed calm authority and preparedness. Sophia felt the rhythm of her own heartbeat synchronize with the measured energy around her, each inhale and exhale a metronome guiding patience, awareness, and control. The reflections of light on polished tables and glassware highlighted subtle movements and gestures, making the choreography of presence, perception, and poise tangible to anyone attuned to the unfolding scene. Patrons continued their quiet conversations, unaware of the intricate tension and layered observation that defined the corner booth, the silent assertion of authority, and the subtle but undeniable shift in the balance of energy within the room. Sophia allowed herself to notice the interplay of light, sound, and scent, each detail reinforcing her grounded focus, her careful calibration of composure, and the patient command of the space she now occupied. Each micro-moment, the faint rustle of a server's uniform, the glimmer of reflection, the gentle tilt of a head, was absorbed and understood, each contributing to the orchestration of perception, awareness, and poised authority. Sophia exhaled once more, feeling the culmination of patience, preparation, and subtle strength converge into a quiet but unmistakable presence. Her calm energy, the measured vigilance of Logan, and the deliberate orchestration of every sensory detail around her asserting a silent but undeniable power that transformed the room and set the stage for what was about to unfold next. Sophia allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection as the soft golden light of the Willow Creek Bistro seemed to settle fully around her, casting a gentle glow across the polished tables and the emerald folds of her dress. Logan remained steadfast at her side, an unspoken pillar of support whose measured presence radiated calm authority and reinforced the subtle power Sophia now held in the room. The ambient hum of conversation, the occasional clatter of silverware, and the faint hiss of steam from the kitchen created a layered soundscape that underscored the heightened awareness she maintained, each auditory detail cataloged and woven into her perception of the unfolding scene. Sophia's gaze swept across the restaurant with meticulous precision, noting every micro-expression, every slight hesitation, every subtle shift in posture from Nathan Hale, who now moved with a quiet uncertainty, aware that the equilibrium he once controlled had subtly shifted against him. She lifted her chin slightly, the curve of her lips forming a calm, deliberate smile that conveyed patience, composure, and the quiet assertion of strength she had cultivated over months of careful observation and preparation. The reflections from polished glassware and silverware scattered light in delicate patterns across the room, highlighting the interplay of movement, posture, and presence, creating a visual rhythm that complemented the layered energy of the space. Sophia's hands rested lightly on the gentle swell of her belly, grounding her in the tangible reality of her life and the deliberate orchestration of the moment, each breath measured and synchronized with the calm pulse of the restaurant. Logan's gaze moved subtly across the room, maintaining an unobtrusive vigilance that reinforced the quiet authority surrounding Sophia, the unspoken communication between them shaping the rhythm of attention and perception without disrupting the flow of the dining space. The gentle aromas of roasted coffee, warm bread, and herbs mingled, grounding her further in the sensory richness of the room, while soft light played across surfaces, accentuating the contrast between ordinary dining rhythms and the extraordinary sense of poised control she projected. Each subtle gesture, each nuance of posture, each micro-movement of Nathan was cataloged in her mind, creating a detailed mental map of influence and awareness that allowed her to navigate the space with deliberate control. Sophia exhaled slowly, allowing the rhythm of her breath to align with the controlled energy she emanated, each inhalation and exhalation reinforcing patience, composure, and quiet power. Patrons continued their conversations, oblivious to the intricate dynamics that defined the corner booth. Yet the subtle shift in atmosphere was palpable, a silent acknowledgement of the authority Sophia now carried through presence, observation, and careful orchestration. Every reflection, every flicker of light, every gentle sound contributed to the layered awareness she maintained, the culmination of months of preparation crystallizing into a serene, poised, and commanding presence. In this space, Sophia's quiet confidence and the steady, measured support of Logan established a rhythm of anticipation and control, a delicate balance of awareness, composure, and silent strength that set the stage for what was to come, leaving the room suspended in an almost tangible tension where every detail mattered, and the unfolding moment promised revelation, resolution, and the unmistakable assertion of her enduring authority.